My PhD dissertation was primarily on job search, but I also had a paper that was on the effect of Sunday shopping deregulation on labor demand. So the big question for me was when governments decided to, I don't know if you know, I mean, it's been around for a long time now that we have Sunday shopping, but you don't have to go that far back in Canadian history when every province in Canada made it illegal for stores to open on Sundays. The Supreme Court found that that was unconstitutional, that, why Sundays, that had something to do with religious freedom and people's choices about what days they choose to work, and the state shouldn't impose that Sunday is the day that you're not allowed to work. So they struck down a lot of these laws that made it illegal at the provincial level to open stores on Sundays. And when they did that, then all of a sudden there was this demand for retail workers on Sundays, and so employers had to decide, how are you going to fill this demand? Are you going to make some of your existing workers come in on Sundays, workers that normally weren't working on Sundays, or are you going to hire new workers to fill these jobs? And so that matters a lot for things like employment rates for young people. There was a lot of discussion about whether this was a bad thing for young people, whether bringing young people in to work on Sundays would have implications for their performance at school. And so I looked at the data to see whether when provincial governments deregulated Sunday shopping, which happened at different times across provinces, whether it led to increases in the hours of work or increases in employment levels. And so the major finding was that you got sort of a bit of both, but there were definitely these quite big labor demand effects of Sunday shopping deregulation. But that led me into this area of a general interest in doing research on topics that relate laws, policies that influence the hours that people work. So I have a general interest, and I've looked at this from a number of different areas. But the most recent research I've been doing on this is in a paper that was just accepted in a journal, was relating weather, so fluctuations in weather, to absenteeism rates of workers. So that was my PhD dissertation work. After my PhD, my first job was at Statistics Canada in Ottawa in a small research division there called the Family and Labor Studies Division. And there I started doing research on immigration policy. So that took me away from this hours of work stuff. And I've continued a lot of that research on immigration since then. And that probably takes up most of my research time these days, is doing work on immigration.
Like the one thing that was sort of a big finding.
I don't know if I have a big finding, but probably the paper that's been cited most often was a paper I wrote with a colleague at Statistics Canada that looked at causes of a deterioration in the labor market earnings of recent immigrants to Canada. So we weren't the first to document that there had been this deterioration in the performance of new immigrants to Canada. But what we tried to do in this paper was to pull together a lot of the existing explanations of it and try to attribute this trend to the different explanations, to say how much of it is this explanation as opposed to a different explanation. And so we kind of took the privileged data access, took advantage of the privileged data access we had at Statistics Canada to try and pull together all these explanations to see what was most important. And that paper has been cited quite a bit.